That's great. So, I thought maybe I'd start off by asking you how you're doing with the quarantine stuff. Are you still taking projects?
What? We're going good.
You're going good. So, are you taking projects in? Do you have a protocol for taking stuff in? Are you quarantining cars if they're shipped to you, or how are you?
I'm taking in little stuff that's local
Uh-huh.
because Paul can pick it up and take it to his nice little shop that he's built because of this
Okay.
and get it done. And it keeps him working, but we're in quarantine.
Okay. So nobody's really
He
over.
picks up outside the back door of the shop.
Uh-huh.
He brings back. We talked with our masks on about 6 or 7 feet away. I like 7 feet.
That's good.
Yeah, that's 7.5 is excellent.
Yeah.
That's what they say.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to catch up on so much work that's been here for too long and keeps me awake at night.
Yeah.
I'm pecking away at that.
What's one of the big projects you got on your bench right now that you're kind of pecking away on and trying to use this time?
What I was going to say just before this, so I'm pecking away at it. And
Uh-huh.
that's what you have to do with almost every repair when it's old vintage stuff. You have to peck away at all those little touch-ups that are the reason you can't give it back.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Do you find that you got to kind of be in space for certain projects? I can rip into a fret job any hour of the day or whatever. But certain structural repairs got to feel special headspace.
You don't need me anymore, do you, Dan? Good.
Nope, it's
Bye, y'all.
Bye, Joe.
you have to feel like doing it.
Yeah, you kind of.
And you have to be in a good spirit and able to focus really hard and not be disturbed.
Yeah.
And that's hard to find time in a busy shop.
Do you listen to music while you're working, or are you stone cold silent?
I tend to keep it silent all the time because the rule pretty much is I don't want them playing music because I don't always want to listen to the music they would listen to. No offense, it's just personal taste.
Yeah,
Plus, I think it just is very distracting, especially for young guys that really don't know what they're doing yet and can make a mistake at any given second.
It's hard to play air guitar.
Then you're in trouble.
Yeah.
So I'm a supervisor in my shop really now. I've got Blake, and who knows when he'll be gone. He may be gone now. He's gone back to his parents' house. He's working on his shop, and that's good. He's 21 years old.
Did you believe that?
Plays the hell out of the guitar. He'd be gone in a second if he got a good band and he could go on the road.
I would imagine so, yeah.
And
he really for 21 years old. I couldn't, when he told me he was 21, I was like, you gotta be kidding me. You wouldn't have wanted to hang out with me for seconds when I was 21. But so Blake Sabbath, that's good. I need to use that one. Blake is only 21, Danny. So let's see. So, one of the things I thought would be interesting, you and I have talked quite a bit about your time basement shops and small shops and stuff. You've always tried to make your house shop your main shop. And I was wondering if there's a lot of people right now that are forced into basements and forced into their sheds and stuff and trying to get their booth on in these small spaces. Do you have any tips for like having customers, or quarantine aside, having your home shop? Do you have any for like getting a lot of to a small space? You can actually have a full function up in a very small space. Are there any good tips and guidelines for that?
I was always very impressed when I first met Frank Ford and went to his house in Palo Alto, and his shop was in his house, in sort of what have been the back dining room or something like that. And the whole wall was lined with red Sears chests.
Yeah.
And he had everything in Sears chests, or he must have had 4 or 5 of them. And so now I do. It's a fair expense, but you don't have to get, you can even do it with cheap chests. Have a whole row of chests with drawers that you keep stuff in.
Yeah.
That's a good use of space.
Yeah.
I have had a lot of shops in my life. My first one was in a fruit cellar in the basement of a house we rented in Ann Arbor. And there was just a little, it had ended up getting a little set of tools, some perforated masonite board that you put all the little hangers on.
Yeah, pegboard.
Stuff drove me crazy. I don't want that anymore.
I'm not a pegboard guy either.
I
know.
I know every handle, but that's all I had was a few tools. There weren't any tools then. My first fret removal tool was a Hyde putty knife, Hyde.
Yeah.
And I sharpened it with sharp edge on a grinder and hacksawed a slot into it. And that was really hard because it was stainless. I didn't know what stainless was then.
Yeah.
But I did manage to get through it with a slot. And I filed that slot down to rounded edges, and I pushed it underneath the frets. I drive it with a little hammer, and they came out good.
Did it? That seems like it would be a good way of doing it to keep chips down too, like reinforce that the wood was staying down as the fret was coming up.
Like the Stuart McDonald chip stoppers.
Yeah.
You know they have those, right?
I saw them. Yeah.
I should send you some. I'll have them send you some. I'm retired.
What was your
Those are great. The chip stoppers are really worth having. You got to sharpen them. You got to round them.
Yeah.
On the nose, just like I did that old putty knife.
Yeah.
So it tucks underneath.
What was the tool that you came up with that was completely your own that Stu Mac adopted? What was your first the one where you're like, oh my God, I'm doing it from now on, and Stu Mac was like, okay, here we go.
The first tool probably would have been the neck jig.
The neck jig?
I would think that's what when I came to 86, I had made 10 of them and was selling them myself from Big Rapids. I sold one to my cousin Mark, and I bought it back this year.
Was that the original long, aluminum one with the sticks that came, the orange tip sticks that came, the kind of thumb screw things? Was that the first iteration of the neck?
The neck jig was really the entire workbench.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So they called it the Luthiers Workstation.
Oh, okay.
And I have one over in the shop that I bought from my cousin Mark, who's downsizing stuff in his shop. And he was going to get rid of it and asked me if I'd be interested. And I said, yes, I bought it from him. And it's got years of his dirt and scratches and glue on it.
Uh-huh.
But it's still in pretty good shape back. I just wanted it because I only made 10. And it's one hell of a heavy maple bench, hard maple. So yeah. I hope, and the whole top spins and it pins on the corners. You never saw them?
I saw it when I was out there when we were doing the class.
Oh, was it here then? Okay.
Yeah. Students were on it.
You could chop your finger off on that if you weren't careful.
Oh, I bet you could spinning it.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Enough on that.
That'd be a to get sued out of existence.
I could remember every workshop I've ever built, though. And for me, learning to build a workshop when you're young, poor, and on your own, I had to learn to do carpentry work and do it well.
Yeah.
Electrical work, at least enough to install AC wherever I wanted it, and outlets, and run lights. And, a certain amount of masonry work because I did a lot of drilling holes into cement blocks.
Uh-huh.
poured cement, and that's how you get things hung on a wall.
Yep.
So a lot of building a shop is rough. I wouldn't spend a year making a fancy workbench, even if you want one. It took me 50 years to get this big old bench that's sitting behind me. You can see that.
Yeah.
That's one of the Almias.
Uh-huh.
Back in 1969 in Ann Arbor, I used to look at Woodcraft catalog from Massachusetts, Woburn, Mass, and see those benches. You all have seen them. God, I drooled about it.
I know.
And my brother-in-law, a confirmed bachelor, bought one when he was into fly tying. He had fly tying machinery, and he bought one of those benches and took really good care of it. And last year he's downsizing, and he's got it out in his garage, and he asked if I'd want it back, you know. I said, yeah, but I'd buy it back. He goes, oh, well, okay, well. And I got it he gave it to me for $400 and brought it down at Thanksgiving.
How hard was that to move? I mean, that seems like.
He moved it by himself, took it apart.
Oh, okay.
Came in pieces in a van. I love that. I haven't had a chance to really use as much as I want. It's always cluttered stuff. So my shop's pretty messy because I have too much stuff. I have a whole lifetime of stuff. Guitar stuff, tools, wood, blah, blah, blah. And I guess I'm a hoarder in a sense.
Yeah,
But every time I need something, I have it.
You do. I've been in your shop. You're not as bad as I've seen some real guys. It gets out of control. Yours is pretty organized. I feel like.
We clean it up when you come.
Well, there's cleaning, but there's also just I can tell that you're not like you know, I don't see a lot of stuff where I wonder, you know, when you're ever going to use it. I mean, it's I struggle with kind of the shop aesthetic too, you know, like I always like, you know, when I'm at Home Depot, I see that cover of Woodworking magazine, I go, oh my God. You know, like I just, for me, like I'm always embarrassed. Or I go back and forth, you know, like I'll work on it a little bit and feel kind of proud of it, and then I'll be back in the checkout line at Home Depot and see that fine Woodworking magazine cover and be like, oh man, I got a long ways to go. But I like your shop space. It's high and tight, man.
It's the best shop I ever had.
Yeah.
It's the first one that wasn't actually in my house, except once Mark Erlewine and I were partners in the 70s.
Yeah.
When we moved, after we formed a partnership, probably in 71, moved downtown on Main Street in Ann to get more space in the basement of a music store. A new music store, also electronics, audio electronics, and they sold some crappy music stuff. And it was a family that owned it. But they also needed money and hustled. They would have sometimes in the front window on the glass window upstairs, it would show they were selling some used tires. Used tires and a sewing machine. So it was, Mark and I were kind of embarrassed because we were down in the basement of that place.
Yeah, it's tough, you know. It's tough to you know, get that vibe going where you feel like you're putting on a professional. I would say that selling used tires wouldn't exactly, you know, give the impression I want customers to have. I don't think. Or like a Craigslist. The somebody's saying the real basement. I'm in the basement right now. We're in quarantine and it's probably going to last for a long time. So
it's good.
Guessing up my basement as best as I can. So I had a couple more questions. What do you ever a warranty station? Do you ever do any warranty work early on? Do you recommend doing young luthiers?
It was good at Gibson because you could buy parts. So it was really cool to have their complete parts list and all that. And
because they were real guarded with their parts, right?
at one point, it was hard to buy them, so we could buy everything at cost, and we didn't end up having to do a lot of warranty work. And then general warranty work doesn't pay well.
It really doesn't.
And same for you couldn't really do the job the way you wanted to for what the company would cover. So you had to be as good as Ian Davlin to make a living.
Oh, my days of speed are but yeah, I think Martin's getting, last I heard, that again maybe 250 or three for a set on a warranty neck reset. I was like, whoa, I don't know. I'd get through a neck reset, but people did.
That's what they're paying?
That's what I heard. I mean, it's all, I mean, you got my brain time unreliability there. So, but that was what I heard. And they're real. I know that they're real guarded with getting people warranty stations now. When I was working in San, I think the guy that I worked for was a Martin Warranty Center. I'm not even sure if I still am. And I was like, "What do you need to do to become a warranty center? Like, know how to do a neck reset?" I was like, "Yeah." Somebody said certificate. That was it. And I think they've tightened their credentialing a little since that was back in like '99. So, but James from Expert Fret there says that Glazers offered $65 for a warranty fret dress.
Say that again.
Do you know James? He used to work at Glazers. He's out in now. James Gay. He's Expert Fret.
I don't think so. Or do I?
Awesome guy. James, do you know Dan? Does Dan know? Let's see. He's probably thumbing his phone right now.
Sometimes your words are cutting out on you.
I'm getting a little cut out on you too.
Are you? Wonder what makes that.
Yeah, it's the internet. It might be how many people we have in the stream.
So you have to read the lips a bit.
A little bit, yeah. We're all saying the same old guitar words too. Like I can infer what you're saying a little bit. So James says he's hopes to meet you soon, but missed Vietnam a half a dozen times. So what are a lot of people on my Instagram are young guys starting out. How do you feel about apprenticeships versus schools? I know that you've gone down to Cottage, Alberta, Van. They ever had you out at Red Wing?
Yeah.
What
Red Wing?
What are your thoughts on apprenticeships versus schools for young fellas getting started, young ladies and young fellas getting started?
My guess would be apprenticeships are hard to get.
They are. I
would think that's really hard to get a real one, and one that had a lot of value.
Yeah.
But it sure can be done. I mean, I've done it with a number of people in my life, and then they worked for a long time for me and started their own. I'm one person.
Yeah.
I can't imagine there's not other repair guys that wouldn't like to teach somebody what they're doing. And Ian, I know you're that way.
I've had one successful apprentice so far. He's teaching in Brooklyn, or not teaching in Brooklyn. Yeah, I enjoy it. Like sometimes I wonder when I'm trying to run a shop and I'm trying to teach somebody, I wonder how effective I am at the teaching part of it. When I come out and do your workshops at your shop, I feel like when I'm focused on able to put together kind of it's better than me trying to look over somebody's shoulder while I'm also at work and trying to run a business. That didn't seem very successful for me. But it sure is nice having somebody clean the shit. Like that's a plus. But for that, you know, I kind of recommend people to the schools too, just because I feel like you wind up you pay for it to get get the you get the A to Z treatment, you know, the curriculum of people that are actually just 100% on teaching you. So
if you go to a school, people that go to school, all they really have to do is really get their money's worth.
Yeah.
And listen and work harder than you ever did in your life.
Yep.
And really see what one's doing. If you don't like it, don't say anything.
Yep.
Take it all in. You can learn as much what not to do
Absolutely.
as you can what to do. Just hang around sometime. You'll find out.
Yeah. You know, I wonder if I can get a better signal upstairs. Maybe I'll run upstairs really quick. Get next to the router. Yeah, that's all right. Really nice stuff on my. Oh. Hey Dan, do you know what? Do you know what that is?
I'm looking. That plant?
No, it was I picked up an old Stanley dowel maker.
I didn't see it.
It seems like we're cutting a little bit less here.
Let me see the doll maker.
Let me see here. It's a bookshelf right now.
Wow. Does it work?
You know, I don't have the right cutters for it.
Like a pencil sharpener?
Yeah, it's like a pencil sharpener. It's this thing. Now let me turn the camera around here.
Awesome. Oh, that's great.
Yeah, I picked that up at a tag sale around here for about $5.
Send me some photos of that.
Can do.
Sometime, yeah, so I can look for one. That's great.
Let's see here. We got a few questions. It looks like we're coming up on Banjo Curious. Let's see here. So I'm going to read one of the. So somebody asked, what are you guys currently working on?
Currently working on?
Yeah.
I am working on a Gibson Gospel from the 70s. Very strange guitar when they changed from jumbo shape to the dreadnought type of shape. And they started building pretty bad guitars in that era. Double X braces and all these weird things that they did. One of them is called the paddle neck joint.
Yeah.
It's got a tenon on the top, and to get past that is a major job, man.
Yeah.
So if you get them around, you don't want to reset the neck. This one came in with the bridge shaved down to about 1/4 of an inch, and grooves filed in it like it looked like an ovation, string ramps, so that they could get some down pressure on the saddle. And the bridge was all cracked, 5 or 6 places in it, but it was glued tight. To make a long story short, I fixed all those cracks with the Dremel tool and the bridge slotting jig. I routed each one like a little saddle, inlaid it with ebony, and moved on. So I patched the bridge together, and it's solid. Then I adjusted the neck straight, and it's kind of a nice guitar. I didn't take the bridge off, but I made it look pretty, but it needs a fret job.
Uh-huh.
But the reason she brought it in was because it has a crack in the lower bout. And then she left, and then I looked at the crack in the whole top along the lower bout. You could move it. Large sections of it were loose. And it also had that completely rotten tortoiseshell binding.
Mm-hmm.
And it actually was so strong that it stained into the maple and the spruce and made it look like a little sunburst all around the binding. To get at the glue joints to glue the top, I knocked off the binding because it was falling off on the floor. fixed that crack. Then I fixed all the glue joints, cleaned them, glued them with spool clamps, and then I scraped all the remaining binding off. I was starting out to fix a crack. And then I went out and found, so I had some thick tortoiseshell binding, old stuff that we don't sell at Stu Mac anymore. It was like 120 thousandths thick or 130. So I planed that all down on the Don McCrosty binding laminating jig, which is awesome, and I sized it, glued it on. I thought about it because I didn't want to waste my life on it, and I called a friend of mine and asked him, what would you glue it on with?
Do you know that friend's name by any chance?
And he said, that was Ian, and he goes, I'm using gel super glue. And I've used super glue, but not a lot of gel. And I put it on with gel super glue, and it worked out real well for me. I papered off on the top, and I put blue tape along the sides to keep cleanup down. And I got that. It took me time, believe me. You know, it's still a couple of days. I just did it because I could do it. And I don't know if the lady's even expecting a giant bill, but I'm giving her a bill. I also put an ebony overlay on the bridge plate inside because it was so miserably chewed up. Mm-hmm. To spring winder up onto the saddle. And she was playing it. She must be a rhythm player with high action, but it sounds good now. I think I want her to come and get it and take it home. I don't want to spray on it. I just said it's fixed. And if she ever wants to really get into it, I'd clean it and airbrush it. I want her to put frets in it. So if she has the money and she puts frets in it now, it'll play with low action. It'll be killer. So that's just about off my bench. She hasn't answered yet. I said, come and pick it up. Needs frets.
You know that that Gretsch I was rebinding, I rebound out with gel CA. And I basically, I did each purfle individually with the gel CA. So black, white, black, and then each layer was glued on individually. I used to do it where I'd laminate all the different layers together, but man, it's tough to get them on. You know,
it is
reasonably in that big a chunk. So
you have to heat them. You have to heat them warm to get them to bend, and then you can wreck it.
Yeah. I've had issues with that. You know, I remember looking at Collins' website, and Collins does that trick where they'll put like something like a big tub of sand on a hot plate and get the sand all hot, and then stick the celluloid binding in the sand and get it kind of uniformly hot. I think that's a pretty smooth idea. But every time I've done it with, you know, like a heat gun, it seems very dicey. It feels like I'm about ready to start a shop fire. So, but
wonder how big a bucket of sand he has.
You know, it looked like almost like, you know, I think I remember seeing it on their the website that was devoted to showing the engineering mandolins. That was where, I don't know if that particular website still, or that area still up, but there was a lot of great information on that Collins mandolin engineering project. Hey Dan, somebody in the questions asked, what kind of glue do you like to use for frets? Do you like to glue in frets at all, or what's your thoughts on glue and frets?
My thoughts are, finishing up on that last statement, it would take a lot of hot sand to do that, though.
Yeah. Danny West, who I think worked at Collins, says it was a George Foreman grill with sand in it. I don't know if that's
really.
He's pulling our legs.
I want to try it. Why not?
Yeah, I think it would work good.
Oh yeah, glue for frets.
There.
Glue fret jobs with glue. I would use whatever glue is right. Sometimes I'll use 2 or 3 different glues on one job.
Yeah.
Depends on the fit. I'm not against using super glue. I used to be, but I'm not anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I'll use epoxy. I like to use hide glue. If I
Yeah.
if I have the fit that we're trying to get, where the fret sort of snaps in, you can feel it bite in.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'd like to do that with hide glue, hot hide glue, and then I'd practice it one first and see how I felt, because then the hot juicy glue goes in and it softens it, and it's not gripping as tight instantly.
Yeah.
So that's something you have to be able to balance that out. Is it working or isn't it working?
Yeah.
And I use jaws a lot. I don't use a hammer a lot, except up on the body when I have to, unless I'm doing something quick and dirty or experimenting.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, everything I do is in the neck jig. I'm clamping most of the frets in.
With
I do.
the jaw, you're doing it with the jaws with the vice grip attachment. Is that
Yeah,
right?
I take that up as far as I can get close to the heel, and from then on, see, I'm in the neck jig.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be clamped into the neck jig when I'm fretting, so I put a swivel jack underneath the heel between the beam on the neck jig,
Mm-hmm.
and tighten it up to the heel, so I've got something to hammer against.
Yeah.
And those frets, I like them to pop in. I like to tap them in. I do like to use the Taylor fret buck.
Yeah.
When that's appropriate. It's not always appropriate if you don't think about it ahead of time on a neck jig the way we use it, because the strap gets in the way that holds it on. And I'll clamp through the sound hole. I like a good fit up on the extension, and if I can use a little glue and clamp it in nicely, I'm happy. And you let them dry well.
Hey Dan, Sound City Guitars had really impressed upon me that he wanted to ask you about doing kind of tiered pricing. Like, is it ever okay, like on a cheap guitar, to do cheap work, or do you do the same work, like a fret job that you do on a Martin is the fret job that you're going to do on a Takamine? Is it ever appropriate, do you feel, to make sure, to earn money, basically, doing work that not you wouldn't be like the most proud of, but you need to get the job done in an amount of time that is appropriate for the instrument. How do you feel about that?
I think that's the way to learn.
Yeah.
That's I'm looking back into the early 60s. You guys are in the 20s. I don't know how that relates financially, but when I started out, I would have been in my 20s. Well, actually in my teens, but I wasn't running a business or working for somebody else. I took on anything I could get just to make some money.
Yeah.
But maybe in this day and age, that may not be possible. But I kept jobs. I worked at McDonald's. I worked at Herb David's Guitar Studio. I always had a job making money, but the spare time would have been guitars.
Mm-hmm.
And I was fortunate, though, because I worked at Herb David's for a number of years, and he was an older guy than me starting out in Lutherie, so that was a good place to be. But any money you can make from a friend, even on cheap guitars, is money towards buying a tool. If it's $40, there you got a chisel.
Yeah.
And it adds up. You can't get everything you want. You can't get what you want.
That's true. A lot of times you got to make the tools yourself too. Like, like, I mean, I love Stu Mack and I love buying their tools, but sometimes if I see a tool on there I think I can make, I'll go ahead and make it. But a lot of times I think, it'll take me longer to make it than it would be to be working on a guitar that would give me the money to buy it from Stu Mack too.
If you have the guitar to make the money.
Yeah.
If you have any spare time in days like these, man, who knows, make little curve blocks that'll fit this, and make the stuff that you reach for the rest of your life. I've got drawers of, see, then it depends, are the people we're talking to or aspiring to, do they have bandsaws and sanders yet?
Yeah.
Do most of the people that we're associating with have a small shop?
Do you mean on the live stream here?
Yeah.
I think it runs the gamut. I've seen people on here that have full-fledged, damn near cabinet shops, and then I've got people on here that are in the basement with a jigsaw and a disc sander. But like I've worked in shops where all they had was like a 9-inch bandsaw, but I have a hard time imagining doing my luthing without at least a small bandsaw. At Lark I did a lot of cutting stuff out. He was paying for it, but I did a lot of cutting stuff with handsaws. But it's hard to think about going into my own shop and not having a bandsaw.
So we'll assume that that's the tool everybody will aspire to get. And some of the little inexpensive ones, benchtop sizes, actually can do what you need to do.
Absolutely.
May not be perfect, but I've got some cheap tools like that are fine. I just got a scroll saw this year, probably Harbor Freight, I don't know, but it works. It's a lot of stampings are cheap. I'm intending to make a heavier table for it. It's just a stamped aluminum plate, kind of jiggles. But now that I'm retired, maybe I'll make something out of butcher blocks or something.
Yeah. Harbor Freight's actually stepped up their game a fair amount recently. Every time I go in there, I'm surprised kind of the level of knockoffs that they're doing. Like it looks like they're knocking off the DeWalt cordless power a little better than their early generation stuff. But it pays to, when you're starting out, definitely not necessarily turn your nose up at Harbor Freight. I mean, they're still not the greatest, but I mean, if you can get a job done with a cheap tool,
by all means, especially if it's a job you're only going to do once and you know it.
Yeah.
I'd buy a paint mixer, or I would buy a fibrillator, anything I needed to get that job done instead of waiting to find someone that could do it.
Yeah.
I'll be right back. I'm coming right back.
Okay. Dan's stepping out for a second. If any of you guys have questions, the scroll is going by so fast. If you look to the right of the comments, look at you.
Joan got me this.
Oh, I love mine.
I got thinking about it because you said copying the DeWalt, the yellow tools, Yeah. I've never had one of these, but I love it. And she surprised me with it. And the battery runs out pretty quick if it's doing a tough job, but so you have to have a lot of batteries.
Yeah.
I figured the carpenters must have 10 batteries all charged.
I bet they did. I had a friend come out from Oregon to help me do some work in New York, and he brought out his DeWalt stuff. And yeah, I was always like pretty skeptical of cordless tools because, like the early days of the batteries, they were just more trouble than they were worth. But we used that DeWalt saw, and the next day I went out and bought one. Or actually, I had my wife got me the set for Christmas.
The little one like that?
Yeah.
20 volt?
Same exact one.
I used it yesterday because I can't go to Lowe's to get lumber, and the flower box out front is rotted out in the bottom.
Uh-huh.
I built these probably 10 years ago. The ones that were on the house when we moved into it were the second set.
Mm-hmm.
But they're long wooden flower boxes, and Joan uses them every year, and this one rotted out. And the thought of building one again. So I flipped it upside down and cut the rotten wood off the bottom. I took 1.5 inches off.
Mm-hmm.
And I made new bottoms for it. So I had a big, long piece of Douglas fir down in my shed, and I brought it up into the shop and cut it apart.
Hey, Dan, Armand's Guitar Shop, he's desperate to say hello to you from Brazil, I believe it was.
Who is?
Armand's Guitar Shop. It's Armand, I'm going to assume that's your name. It's very hard because the scroll is super tiny on here and it's going so fast.
Well, I know Armand.
Oh, you do? Argentina. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Argentina. How many people do you have out there?
We were up like 50 or so.
Right now?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, hey, one more EQ guitar pair. wants to know your best method for cutting in splines, doing top splines on acoustics. What do you like to do for top splines, or do you like to do top at all?
I would like to avoid them whenever possible. There'd be a lot of times when I would be happy just to glue it and see how it holds up. But usually what I end up doing is taking a piece of spruce and cutting it with a knife so I can split it, stand it on end and split a nice piece off. Then I can get the reed or the softwood and I shave that on until it fits. And I have some knives that I run through a crack. If I was prepared, I could show some of those that you can pull or run through a crack and they actually can widen it.
Is it like the Ibex, the old Ibex?
I have one. I have that, and I have one Don McCroskey made that we sold.
So some customer management here, they want to, are you appointment only? Do you have walk-in hours? Can anybody come over to the shop anytime and knock on the door and ask you to fix a guitar? Or how do you handle the customer interaction and still be able to get on the bench and not have people chewing your ear off with tales of the guitars that got away and all that kind of nonsense?
Appointment only.
Appointment only? Is that what you're doing?
Usually by email. I don't usually talk on the phone a lot. I encourage them. Sometimes they'll get on the phone and, well, they got you. Well, they got you. And they'll go on. I'm good at getting off of that and saying the best thing is email me. You know, I've got somebody here right now, and I also have to get on the job after that. I'll lie to them. And appointment only. Once in a while, someone will show up at the door, and it freaks me out because I don't have a sign outside. I keep a low profile. I'm in a neighborhood. I built a shop out behind my house. I ran a repair shop in the basement of my house next door since 1986. And then we built a deck on the back of the house and put in a garage. But it wasn't really a garage, it was my shop.
Have you ever had to 86 a customer? Have there ever been any customers where you're like, that's it, I'm not with you anymore? And if so, how did you deal with that?
If I did, it's been quite a while, and it's almost always been, I think twice I've been taken to small claims court. I just don't go. It's always by some horrible person that's just out to get you.
Yeah.
And so I haven't had much dealing with that, really.
Okay.
If I screw something up and someone's unhappy, give them their money back.
Yeah.
Or do it again right, say send it back, if that's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I try not to leave anybody unhappy. You have to spend time with customers. That's a big time out of my life anyway. People coming and going. The guys in the shop can handle that. They can. I can be gone and they can take a guitar in, and I often spread out when I know someone's coming. And they're happy. That's how the guys in the shop gain respect and learn how to handle customers. Because a lot of the customers can be rough, man. Not in a bad way, but we could tell you stories Ian can tell them. God, they'll talk for an hour and 45 minutes. And sometimes you charge for that.
I got to tell you the story of the kid in Brooklyn that actually got into my toolbox over there to do some work on his guitar. And
you told me this one.
Oh, I told you that story? Yeah.
Tell it. It's wonderful.
No, it's another thing. Bad Luthier wants to know why he can't solder correctly. Constant ground hum. Could it be my amp?
I'm not an electronics guy. I have my amps fixed. I don't repair them.
Yeah.
I did about 9 years ago. I bought a couple of $1,000 worth of electronic stuff used. I talked to Richie Fliegler, if you know Richie Fliegler, and he knows a lot about amps. at Fender, and I bought used equipment that was an oscilloscope and this kind of thing. I can't even tell you the names of it all because I paid the guy to wire it up so when I plugged it in, I could do all this stuff, and it just kind of gathered dust. I thought it would look impressive in the shop, and I was kind of interested in working on my own amps, but then I decided you can't do it all. You just can't. We have an amp guy in town that we pay $100 an hour. We've kept on raising that price because he can do it in a fucking hour.
Yeah.
Pardon my French.
I think that's.
So, I love amps, and sometimes I buy an amp for no reason, but I'm trying to not do that.
Yeah.
I love a good amp. I have an Imperial Tone King, hand wired by the original maker.
God.
At the first NAMM show, he was there. That was with Albert Garcia, who works at Fender, and he's my good buddy, my first guitar student years ago in my school, back in Michigan. And we'd always meet and walk the NAMM show for years and years. And I said, I'm looking for an amp, and we stopped and played that thing, bought it. Well,
we got a couple minutes left. Do you want to say anything to anybody in chat that you've seen? I don't know if you've seen anybody. We've got.
I got some notes.
Yeah, go ahead.
When Ian talked about are there different levels of repair work to do for different kind of guitars, certainly. And then Ian, I think, brought up the fact that with all these really great Chinese and Korean and imported guitars, things that aren't like 30 or 40 years ago, they're excellent guitars. Some of them are really fine.
They are.
You're going to have to lower your price to do a fret job on a guitar like that because they'll think about replacing it before what some of us guys would charge to fret it. I think a lot of those guitars are going to be a gold mine for new people to work their way up to the top.
Yeah.
They're going to need work, and they're really nice. And if you don't have a lot of experience, it'd be fun to work on them. I mean, my experience with those types of guitars would have been not nearly as fine of an instrument. Yamaha would have been good in the early 70s, acoustic-wise. Before that, it was Kent, and there weren't a lot of really good imported flat-top guitar, steel string guitars.
Yeah, those Yamahas all had neck angle issues, like right out.
Oh,
right out.
And you couldn't take the necks out.
No. Hey, Florin Flarnowitz asks, I'm having a hard time figuring out what he's saying here, but he wants to know, would you recommend using hard maple plugs to plug tuner holes, then re-drilled for different size tuners? You know, like, would you, I'm wondering if he's wondering, you know, like on a maple neck, that seems pretty natural, but would you use something other than mahogany if you were plugging like a Martin thing, just to make sure, a Martin peg head, or would you still use mahogany?
I'd use mahogany. I'd use the same wood it was.
Same wood it was? Yeah.
Make my own plugs.
But if it was a hard maple neck, like a Strat neck or something, you'd use.
Then I'd use maple. Definitely.
Toolbox story, Dan says. Dan Wolf, he's from Chicago Fretworks. Is there a toolbox story? I don't know.
A story of a toolbox? For me? Yeah, I have a leather-covered Gerstner machinist chest, probably from the 1930s or 40s, that I got in Big Rapids. Is this what you're talking about?
I don't know.
I got in Big Rapids.
Toolbox story.
I got it at Pete's yard sale in Big Rapids.
The toolbox story. I'll tell that on my live stream on YouTube. Just so you guys know, my YouTube is just Ian Davlin on there, and I'm live streaming, and I'll tell stories on there if you guys want. So go subscribe to my YouTube channel. We're having fun doing the live stream. So Dan, tell me your toolbox story though.
We went into Pete's yard sale, which hang with looks like a bazaar sale or something, at Kiwanis sale. It was dresses hanging and lawnmowers and this and that. And back in the corner was this dusty gray leather box. And I knelt down and fiddled with it and opened it up. And it was.
Dan, I hate to stop you, but we're running out of time. We only got 19 seconds left.
And I got it, and it was full of machine tools, and I have it today. I'll show it next time.
Awesome. Dan, thank you so much for doing this with me, man. It was a lot of fun. I hope everybody got a lot out of this live stream. Thanks for everybody.